I was driving alone at night along a forgotten mountain road, searching for a shortcut that promised to save hours. My phone signal vanished suddenly, and thick fog wrapped around my headlights like something breathing patiently. The road narrowed, cracked, and twisted, as if no human had used it in many years. The steady sound of the engine was the only proof that reality still existed around me. Without warning, an old wooden sign appeared through the fog, its letters barely readable. The village name meant nothing to me, and it did not exist on my navigation system. I tried to keep driving straight, but the road curved sharply on its own. The steering wheel grew heavy in my hands, resisting every attempt to turn away. I realized too late that I had already crossed an invisible boundary. The village emerged from the mist like a memory that did not belong to me. My car slowed down without my foot touching the brake, as if the village itself demanded caution. The street ahead was empty, yet it felt recently used, unnaturally prepared for visitors. Old street lamps glowed dimly, casting lifeless light across the cracked pavement. I glanced at the rearview mirror and saw nothing but fog swallowing the road behind me. The mountain path I came from no longer existed. I parked near a small central square, surrounded by silent wooden houses. When I turned off the engine, the silence felt thick, heavy, and oppressive. I stepped out of the car, and cold air crawled across my skin. Closing the door made no sound, as if noise was forbidden here. That was when I noticed the first man walking slowly across the square. The light touched him clearly, yet something was wrong. I looked down and saw that his feet cast no shadow at all. I blamed exhaustion, fear, and the long drive for the illusion. Then another person passed, followed by a child, then a group of 3. None of them had shadows. I checked the ground beneath myself. My shadow was there, long and sharp, clinging to me desperately. It felt like a warning, rather than a natural reflection. One of the villagers approached me calmly, smiling without curiosity. He asked if I was lost, as though he already knew the answer. I asked for directions out of the village. He pointed behind me. When I turned, there was only fog and solid walls. When I looked back, he stood closer than before, still smiling, still without a shadow. A deep unease settled into my chest. I rushed back to my car, desperate for familiarity. I sat behind the wheel and turned the key. Nothing happened. I tried again and again, but the engine remained silent. The dashboard lights worked, yet the clock was frozen. Time itself had stopped moving. I lifted my head and saw villagers standing around me. They watched quietly, patiently. Every single one of them stood without a shadow. I stepped out of the car again, my heart racing violently. The air felt heavier with each breath I took. I looked down at the ground once more. My shadow was no longer aligned with my feet. It stood slightly ahead of me. When I moved, it moved first. My stomach twisted with terror. I realized the village was not broken. It was functioning exactly as intended. And I was the malfunction. Something here wanted me. Something had already chosen me. The road had not brought me by accident. I had been delivered. I tried convincing myself that panic was creating hallucinations. But my shadow continued to behave independently. It paused when I did, leaned when I leaned, yet never followed correctly. The villagers parted silently as I walked toward the square. Their eyes held understanding, not surprise. Street lamps flickered slowly, like breathing organisms. Shadows crawled across the walls without bodies to cast them. They slid like black stains, alive and searching. One passed beneath my feet, sending sharp cold through my bones. I turned and found my shadow staring back at me. A whisper reached my ears, soft and intimate. It spoke my name. The voice was mine. I covered my ears, but the sound came from inside my skull. An elderly man approached, his face pale and calm. He said the village disliked travelers who arrived by car. Cars carried strong, healthy shadows. Shadows worth keeping. I asked what happened to them. He smiled with sadness and said they stayed longer than their owners. My shadow stretched unnaturally, its edges thinning and cracking. It no longer resembled anything human. I jumped, and it reacted out of sync. It was no longer mine, only connected by memory. I began to understand that shadows here were not caused by light. They were beings. The village was built for them. Humans were merely vessels. The man said no one truly leaves this place. Only bodies move. Dizziness overwhelmed me as the ground tilted. The villagers stepped back, forming a wide circle. The shadows gathered together, merging and stretching. Darkness grew despite the lights. I tried to run, but my legs felt heavy. My shadow blocked my path. It reached toward me with a distorted limb. Cold unlike anything I had known pierced my chest. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. A single voice said it was time. I tried screaming, but my voice never formed. Something was being pulled out of me slowly. Memories blurred and twisted. My reflection appeared inside the shadow beneath me. I saw myself the way it saw me. Weak. Empty. Perfect. The villagers whispered that I would stay now. And they were right. I do not know how much time passed after that moment. Time does not function properly in the village. I awoke in a narrow room with stone-cold walls. Pale light leaked through a small window without a visible source. I stood and looked down. There was no shadow beneath me. A hollow sensation followed me everywhere I moved. Outside, the villagers greeted me warmly. The same smile I once feared now felt familiar. I asked about my car, and silence answered me. I saw my shadow standing on a distant wall. It looked stronger than I ever was. It moved freely, confidently. It did not acknowledge me. Pain shot through my head when I stepped closer. A voice inside warned me not to approach. Shadows had rules here, and I no longer had rights. Hunger and exhaustion disappeared completely. I realized I was no longer fully human. Days passed without change. I learned to avoid the walls at night. Shadows gathered there, whispering secrets. My name slowly faded from my memory. The village erased it carefully. I tried remembering my face before arrival. I could not. Only the loss remained. Something essential was gone forever. My shadow returned one night and spoke to me. It said the headlights had drawn them to me. The road had been prepared long before I arrived. Nothing had been coincidence. I asked if I could leave. It shook its head slowly. It told me I already had. What remained was only a shell. I accepted the truth. Resistance no longer mattered. This was survival now. I breathed without purpose, walked without direction, existed without reflection. The village had taken its payment, and spared my body. That was its mercy. I stopped fighting it. Everyone does eventually. This is how the village endures. This is how we stay. One morning, the sound of an engine echoed through the fog. The sound felt alive, powerful, familiar. A new car approached the village slowly. Memory struck me like a blade. I stood in the square with the others. My smile appeared naturally. The driver stepped out, confused and cautious. His shadow stretched strong and dark beneath him. Something stirred inside me. Not pity. Hunger. I approached him calmly and asked if he was lost. The same words spoken to me once. The same gentle tone. He asked for directions out. I looked behind him where no road existed. I suggested he rest for a while. The village welcomes tired travelers. My shadow stood behind him patiently, stretching. I finally understood everything. The village never dies. It feeds. Shadows are its nourishment. Cars bring the strongest ones. Drivers rarely escape. I smiled again. This place is my home now. I no longer seek escape. I maintain the cycle. If you ever drive down an unfamiliar road at night and see a village missing from every map, do not follow the sign. Do not trust the fog. And never turn off your engine. Because the village will not take your life. It will take something far worse. Your shadow. And it will leave you breathing without it. Forever. I am still here. Smiling at newcomers. Watching the ground carefully. Measuring their shadows. The village is always hungry. And I help feed it. This is the price of my shortcut. This is the price of driving alone. This is the price of the fog. And this is your warning.